Hello, my name is Bishop Aubrey Shines, and I'm Senior Pastor at Glory to Glory Ministries International here in the beautiful state of Florida. I am fully aware that the messaging that you're about to hear may seem controversial or even unnerving. My intentions are purely to educate others of a social issue that is affecting the very fabric of our society. I also recognize that this message may cause some to label me as a religious bigot or even homophobic. But I assure you that as a proud citizen of the United States of America, as well as a father and a pastor, my only concern is for the future of our nation. In the last decade, no topic has been as pervasive and divisive as the same-sex agenda. And many are often unaware of how it will affect their lives in the future as well as the lives of their children. Let's take a look at just a few ways that this topic has already fundamentally changed America and, if not addressed, will strip your religious rights, will force your children to celebrate a lifestyle that may be contrary to your belief systems, and will take away your constitutional right to express a different view. On May 23rd of 2012, over 175 Christian leaders from around the country gathered in Washington, D.C., a group that represented nearly 100,000 individual churches and several denominations. The purpose was to strategize how we would respond to President Obama's evolving from his once held biblical view on the definition of marriage. The black leaders that are part of this multi-ethnic coalition expressed that had they known that President Obama would change his position on marriage, they never would have cast their vote for him to begin with. Dozens of organizations are now collaborating for the sole purpose to endorse candidates that adhere to the definition of natural marriage. The First Amendment, in theory, should protect religious groups from persecution for their views about marriage or following religious beliefs. However, there have been several instances of businesses that have had to close their doors and others that are financially at the brink of collapse because they refuse to deny their Christian faith. Let's take a look at just a few. When a homosexual couple, Charlie and David, visited Jack Phillips' bakery asking him to bake a cake to celebrate their wedding, Jack declined to do so based on his evangelical Christian beliefs. Because of his actions, Judge Robert Spencer ruled that Jack Phillips violated Colorado's anti-discrimination law, therefore ordering Phillips to bake cakes celebrating homosexual marriages for any parties in the future that will ask him to do so, regardless of Jack's religious beliefs or his constitutional rights. Barronelle Sutston is being sued by the ACLU because she refuses to arrange flowers for a same-sex wedding. Phil Robertson of a popular network was actually suspended because he expressed his religious belief that homosexuality is a sin. Phil was only sharing biblical scripture that is reflected both in the Old and New Testament. 5 Christian men were threatened with arrest for sharing their faith on a public sidewalk in the state of Virginia. A Christian student at the University of Missouri was threatened with having her degree withheld because she refused to write a letter to the state legislator expressing her support for homosexual adoption. The homosexual and liberal community have used threats, boycotts, protests, and the intervention of state or judicial authorities in order to try to silence conservative and religious groups. Politically and socially, the homosexual ideal is aggressively being pushed down the throats of every American with little regard or tolerance of an opposing viewpoint or ethical standard. In 2008, The Advocate, a homosexual magazine, announced that gay is the new black, and also that the NAACP endorses gay marriage as a civil right. First, in response to gay is the new black, it is absolutely impossible to compare one's skin color with one's behavior. An individual is born with his or her skin color. However, who a person decides to be attracted to is a result of a choice. In fact, as I stand before you today, there is not one shred of scientific evidence that a person is born with a homosexual gene. Even the pro-gay American Psychiatric Association stated that to date, there are no replicated scientific studies supporting any specific biological etiology for homosexuality. Lesbian author Camille Paglia even expressed that no one is born gay and that the idea itself is actually ridiculous. There are also countless organizations that are comprised of former homosexuals who were able to modify their behavior and lead heterosexual lives. Conversely, a person's race or skin color is something that cannot be modified because it's impossible to change the degree of melatonin in their system, regardless of what skin treatment they may use. The conclusion is that genetics is what actually determines one's skin color, not behavior. Homosexuality, however, has not been proven to be genetic. In response to the NAACP endorsing homosexuality, even though 70% of blacks in the state of California desired not to change the definition of marriage as a union between a man and a woman, the NAACP still decided to oppose Proposition 8 in that state. In addition, they also opposed the Defense of Marriage Act, which was signed by President Bill Clinton in 1996, even despite most of the NAACP's members supporting traditional marriage. A point that I would like to make is that the suffering that blacks had to endure when ripped from their homeland to be slaves in America does not even come close to what homosexuals have had to endure. Blacks were chained and stacked on top of each other in the bottom of ships while lying in their own feces and urine and regurgitation. They were sold like animals, separated from their families, watched their wives and their daughters savagely be raped, were not properly educated or employed, and finally were lynched with genitals savagely cut off while crowds often cheered on. One can see why blacks in America are outraged that the LGBT community would compare their cause to the several hundred years of inhumane, barbaric behavior that blacks endured from a governmental power. It's the most insulting, insensitive, intolerable comparison in the world. To those that are watching this video, now is the time to make your voices heard in voting booths across America. Pastors, inform your parishioners and your community leaders that if we remain silent, the very religious protections that we have been afforded will continue to be taken away by those who are intolerant of our constitutional rights. Help support our cause by informing others as we work to maintain the greatest nation on God's green earth.
Please don't dismiss this message. The moral and political welfare of America hangs in the balance, and we will be in serious trouble unless we begin to act now. Let your voices be heard and share this message with others. Please donate to help us fight for this great nation. The time to stand is now.